Hello there. Welcome to another talk. Uh, just turn that down a little bit. And this talk is called Spiritual Ascension and Awakening. I've actually been uploading videos lately, but it hasn't been going on to YouTube for whatever reason. Just hasn't been an upload failed, so I might try a couple of different sites today. If you've been visiting my website, a few weeks ago I put up, I done a little a version of John Lennon's song Love, so people would have had a chance to see that. And I've tried doing a couple of talks, but wasn't meant to be. And as you would have noticed at the start of this talk was this monatomic gold. That's something new I've been getting into. It's really good. Really good. It's supposed to be, I don't know that much about it, but it's supposed to be elements mixed together and supposed to be like science studies done, and it's supposed to be like atoms. And as we know, atoms is what creates this physical reality. And then so when you take it in into your body, it heals cells and stuff. I was prescribed codeine a few weeks ago for toothache, and to me it just feels like the codeine. It just feels the same. That same relaxation you get, it feels very almost exact. There was one day when I still had some of the codeine things left, and I took that as well, because you can actually take monatomic gold along with other things. It seems to complement whatever you're doing. But when I took the codeine, it just felt the same. There was no change. So maybe it's just me. I mean, I've looked on the internet about this, and I haven't seen much about that. Maybe it's because I do a lot of meditation also. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe, or maybe it's just me. Because I'm into power sleep meditation. What's power sleep? Power sleep is say you wake up and you want like an extra hour's sleep. When you feel that you want this is what Kobe Bryant was into. And power sleep is just you want that extra sleep. And the reason you want it is because inwardly you want it. Because when you first wake up in the morning, you're just going on pure instinct. Your mind hasn't started working yet. So that's what power sleep is. And monatomic gold, because it's very relaxing, it can be good for that also. It activates the third eye. It's good for it's like an assistant, you know. And it's atoms, so it's healing you as well. But that's something new I'm getting into. But like I've said before, how this all began for me was I had an unexpected spiritual awakening. So everything, if it wasn't for that awakening, I wouldn't even take supplements or real medicines. Because I used to suffer from depression so bad that I couldn't even care, you know, about stuff like that. I wouldn't have. The road that I was on, if I would have carried on that road, it might have led to suicide, you know. A lot of people on that similar road, I actually knew someone that killed themselves on that very similar road. And he says to me not long before he died, he said, if you don't want to end up like me, don't drink alcohol or do drugs. And but obviously after that, a few years after he died, I think it was, or not long after he died actually, I had a spiritual awakening. And it happened at the age of 24. I'm 34 on my birthday. I was 24 and I sat down and had enough. Eckhart Tolle had a very similar thing as well. He got up one night and he just was so depressed, and then his awakening started manifesting. But yeah, it happened for me because I had enough, right? And then that started the spiritual ascension and awakening. That's why I called this talk Spiritual Ascension and Awakening. Had an idea I wanted to talk about this subject. And when I talk about my own awakening, it was a big experience, but there was a lot of trauma there, because it was such a big experience. No, because the reason it's traumatic is because it's got to be, because awakening is traumatic because you're going out of your comfort zone. You see? But through that traumatic thing, you then start to heal from it. And I used to be very, very hyperactive. School, when I was in school, they said I had ADHD. And now I'm into relaxation, sleep, and meditation, all through this awakening, though. That was the core of all this. That was the core of it all. Yeah, so that was the core of it at the age of 24, so it's hard to believe almost 10 years into this path. I'm looking forward for when it's 20 years. And this path has just shown me about what I am, what we all are, and what starts then happening once I had the awakening, a stream of other things in sync with the awakening started happening. Like, I'd be on YouTube a little while afterwards, like a few years afterwards, and not even looking for spiritual things, and then all this Buddhism stuff starts coming up, and it's reflecting me back what's happened to me. So it was a very synchronistic kind of thing. And I realised that God was leading the way and showing me what this is. And I believe that God is accessed through the present moment, which is also heart. When you live from your heart, whenever you live from your heart, you're present. And I believe that contacts heaven, and I believe heaven is presence, but I think presence is like a doorway into the dimension of heaven, which I believe exists in space and is accessed through this emotional change when you live from your heart. I've been watching a few documentaries lately about life after death, and this one guy said he died and he met Jesus. And a lot of people say they meet Jesus, so maybe Jesus is the King of Heaven. And he said this guy, and he said that Jesus explained to him that the reason space or science can't access heaven yet in space is because they don't understand that everything's emotional. And space and time go by emotion. So you can merely access any place in space that is millions of light years away through emotion. The reason it's so far physically is because emotionally planet Earth is not aligned to accessing it. And that's why we can't access it yet. But we will. Because what's happened on the planet is people have had spiritual awakenings, I think since around 2012, but it's always been going on. And as this happens more and more, science will evolve and everything will evolve. And obviously what the system is trying to do, these Satanists, these Antichrist people, is they're trying to stop an awakening by, I'm not going to say the word, by getting an injection into you that, is going to change your biology by linking you to AI. So the idea is to stop an awakening. But it's too far gone. You can't stop an awakening because everything that life is, all people come from source. Everything comes from source. So basically, it's just a movie, and even the Satanists, the elite people, are just part of the dream, part of the movie. And the idea of the movie is so that we learn from it and that we grow from it, and then we can look back in many years to come and say, oh, we understand how we had to have this to lead to that, to lead to the next thing. But yeah, my path, monatomic gold, and I take many supplements, and in the morning I take a load of vitamins as well, and different supplements. And the supplements I take, I mean, all they're doing is they're vibrating your body higher, so that you don't get things like colds and flus. And when your body is filled with vitamins, naturally, if you haven't had a spiritual awakening, you can actually, this is a good way to connect yourself spiritually as well. But I realized that into my awakening path, it was last year I started taking vitamins, and I realized that because my body was the physical body, because we do live in a physical body, because it's if it's not taking vitamins, it's going to work on a lower vibration, even though you've had a spiritual awakening. So I wanted to get my physical body higher vibrational by taking vitamins and supplements and medicines, so that I can. So because the thing is, a lot of people that claim to be spiritual say things like, oh, it's such a low dense experience being human, but I don't think so. I think if you take the right vitamins, you take the right supplements, you can vibrate your body high, so you feel good all the time. If you're getting the power sleep, which I spoke about earlier, meditation, sleep, power sleep, going within, you're giving your body vitamins, nutrients, you're going to feel great all the time, and you're going to have energy all the time. And this is a great way to connect yourself. And by doing that, that can start you on your spiritual awakening path. And all you're doing is, when you treat your body well, you're treating your spirit, your soul well. You're treating your heart well. Your heart becomes happy when you get the right sleep and you take the right nutrients. And that's why Kobe Bryant said in the talk I watched a few weeks ago, that's what he believed. He believed in meditation and power sleep. Like I've said, power sleep is where you get that extra hour if you want it, and it's very good for you, and you feel better for it. And he done these things because he was a sports star. I heard about Kobe Bryant, but it was only a few weeks ago that I watched one of his talks. I didn't even know he was so spiritual. And but what I'm trying to give here, I'm trying to give another way of to awaken yourself. I had a rough, unexpected awakening because of depression, but I understand that there's not only one way to spiritually awaken. You can awaken through taking vitamins and meditate and power sleep, and then that will start connecting you with source, and you can awaken that way. I think I awakened the way I did was so that other people don't have to awaken that way. So my job is to get that rough awakening, and to give other ways for people to awaken in easier ways. I believe I awakened like that because I created that karmic reality for myself. It was a very traumatic experience because of the reality I created up to that point. And so it was a very traumatic thing. But I believe that the reason people have these awakenings is so that they, like Eckhart Tolle, if you watch his talks, he gives so many different examples of how to awaken. Which, he was asked the question last week in one of his talks, that if it was unexpected as awakening, how does he know all these techniques work? Well, because he's been through the experience, and these inner body meditations that he does to himself, so he knows the effect. That's part of his awakening process. So it's merely the same kind of thing I'm doing. Obviously, Eckhart Tolle's been on the path a lot longer than I have. He was 28 when he had his awakening. I was 28 the last time I had any depression. Because the depression didn't go away at the start. It took years of all this stuff I'm talking about, the meditation, the power sleep, all the other stuff, going within. And then the depression just faded to nothing. At the age of 28, then it just disappeared. So nearly 6 years. But that's how you go on your road of spiritual ascension, on awakening. Start treating your body well. Start listening to your heart. Stop. Like, one of the things that I still do sometimes, but not as much, and it used to get me depressed, was beat myself up about stuff. And I still do it sometimes, but I don't get depressed over it now. I haven't done for nearly 6 years. And it's a lot less now. But I understand, and there's the reason that is because this is the society that we live in, where people naturally just beat themselves up at things because we're programmed to. But once I had the awakening, the awakening was like God showing me to just let go. It's okay. We live in a world where with evil people trying to convince us to feel bad about ourselves, but God has got a completely different perspective. God's perspective is more just, it's okay. It's okay. You've been programmed to feel and think this way by the system. But if you just live by your heart is always saying it's okay, let go. And that's God's voice right there. And that's what presence does, and that's what happens when you live in your heart. It's just this inner knowing that you should just let go of the weights that you carry. And that's basically what I've been going through for just under 10 years. Just this constant thing of letting go. And that's why the depression faded and it went away at the age of 28. And like I say, listen to my talks will help you on your path of awakening. And I will continue to give other different examples of things that, because when you spiritually awaken, it's a thing that they call oversoul. Oversoul is the middleman between you and source, heaven. And so I've been going through a process led by oversoul, and I'm just passing the same information on, basically. Like a spiritual messenger, which we all become once we choose to awaken. And you choose to awaken once you let go, live from your heart, and be present. And then the source light will lead the way. And you'll start to get insight, you'll start to know things, you'll start to put things together. Things will become synchronistic. You'll start to have understanding, clarity, awareness. And what's happening is you're vibrating higher and higher, and this awakens and aligns the chakra system with the divine self. And I'm just passing the information on. And this awakening is going to get bigger and bigger, and the system can't win with all its fear, its masks, it's all to try and stop an awakening, because they're terrified of it, because they know that it's game over for them. Because these people, these evil people, or the evils that control them, like David Icke talks about, are energy vampires, but on a larger scale that we think. Demonic entities feed off of negativity. So the reason why they want the masks and all the fear is because they can't get their feed if the planet is awake. If the planet is spiritually evolved, these demons can't get their feed. A David Icke talk I watched years ago, he said, and I've saw demonologists say this, that demonic entities, they feed off of your fear and anxiety and low vibrations, but love kills them, and the awakening kind of feelings kills them. They can't feed off that. So that's the way to do it. Because these entities, or dark energies, they are not meant to be doing what they're doing. But the reason they're meant to be doing what they're doing is so that we learn from it, and that they learn also. Because when you're actually in the dark side, you're not happy doing so. An example is someone drinking alcohol or drug addiction. It doesn't make you feel good. So that's an example of the entities that David Icke calls reptilians. I'm not going to say reptilians rule the world, but I'll say that everything's just energy, and everything at the moment is returning to source. Because it's like I've said earlier, it's just like a movie. It's just a movie script. And the reason we have to go through the movie script is so that we learn, and when we die, we take everything back to God, which is source, which is what they call heaven, which is this place in space, which is also the present moment. And I'm just going to leave it there. For latest updates and talks and news and research, please do visit my website at www.lovelightfamily.com. Thank you.